Good evening, everyone, and welcome to number 15 of the JeopardyFan.com's live panel discussions. Once again, I'm Andy Saunders. I will be moderating the discussion this evening. We have a slightly smaller panel than our last few Tournament of Champions panels, but I'd like to introduce our panel right now. First up, I have my co-blogger at the Jeopardy fan, Jeanie Kenkel, with her tonight, Vernon Joseph. Hi, Vernon and Jeanie. So Vernon, you may hear him at once, or there he is. There's Vernon. Perfect. You may hear his voice as well. We also have from J-Board and J-Archive, David Kendall, who's skipping the Grey Cup to talk Jeopardy with us tonight. In terms of former contestants, first up, we have David Greisman. He won this past Thursday on the show. We also have Jennifer Healy, who's run Bookended, the Tournament of Champions. Congratulations to both of you on your respective victories. And finally, our final panelist, the 2014 Teen Tournament Champion, Jeff Shea. Congratulations, Jeff, and thank you all for joining us. So first up, November 30th. Today is a big day in the Jeopardy world. You may have seen this once or twice going across your news feeds, but today is the 10th anniversary of Nancy Zerg's only win on Jeopardy. Because she defeated Ken Jennings after 74 games. And yes, Ken was... I would say he changed the way the game was played a little bit, if only because they gave contenders more chance on the buzzer before the episodes after Ken was on, because I guess they figured it was more fair that way, which is always nice. Let's see, November 30th, also in Jeopardy news, best of luck to alumnus Peter Diakowski. He was on June 3rd of this past year, the day after Julie Collins lost. He is playing for the Hamilton Tiger Cats as an offensive guard in today's Grey Cup game. Best of luck to him. And he's finally made his way back into the lineup, actually. He had a rather serious injury and blood clot, actually. He was the subject of a lot of media attention up in Canada. Bruce Arthur did quite a nice story about him in the Toronto Star. So if you're interested, you can look that up. And coming up next week on our Hangout, we have some Kids Week alums talking Kids Week. And so if you're interested in joining us for that, please let us know. Now on to me no longer talking, but everyone else talking. Let's see. We were supposed to have Mike Smargessi on for Sports Jeopardy for his Sports Jeopardy appearance last week, but unfortunately he could not join us. But because I think everyone ended up watching it anyway in preparation, former panelist Alex DeFrank is still leading the standings on 22,001. Now, having watched Sports Jeopardy, are we surprised that after 10 episodes, 22,001 is still the leading score? Remember, the top three scores go and play 2 days at the end for $50,000.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I don't think it's going to hold up, but I hope it will. I liked him.
I figure that there's going to be a point eventually. Well, there will be some great champion, like we always see on Jeopardy, that just comes and sweeps everything. I think that total will definitely be eclipsed, but who knows how soon? You just have to wait and see how it all blows.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how well the sports guys know about wagering.
Oh gosh.
I think I brought this up here before. I don't know how much they watch regular Jeopardy as a whole, but I found when I watched the episode that you were referring to that the final Jeopardy wagers were a bit odd, in my opinion, and I was glad to see that they talked about that in the credit chats there, why they wagered what they did. But still, I found that those wouldn't have been the same kind of wagers if it was a regular Jeopardy show, I think, and that might be just why we haven't seen the same kind of totals.
I think regular Jeopardy is intimidating in a way that you do want to think about all facets of it when you're preparing for it. And I think in terms of sports trivia, it's still the beginning of this new iteration of it, and so people might not be considering all other aspects of it. They want to bolster their sports knowledge and aren't really considering the other elements of it just yet.
Also, I kind of think that when it comes to Sports Jeopardy, and I'm not really positive on how, like, who actually tries out, but I think the Sports Jeopardy people are kind of like just the people who see it for the first time and just like, oh, this is cool, and they get on, but they're not really that into Jeopardy as a whole. They're just in there because it's sports that they don't prepare as. Maybe they obviously prepare for the knowledge aspect, but I don't think they prepare for the other aspect, like buzzing and wagering, which is why we don't see good wagering.
Yeah, I know on the episode they asked somebody, "Oh, you're the guy that they go to for all the sports things and this, that, and the other thing." So it's sports first, Jeopardy second.
Yeah.
The one thing I do think is interesting, I'm sorry if you all have mentioned this already, I feel like the level of questions are a lot lower than maybe Stump the Schwab was back in the day, and I think that's part of the effort to make it more accessible to the casual viewer and not just the sports nut. I think that's a good idea. I don't know if the questions are going to get more difficult if the show catches on.
But Jeopardy itself is also more accessible to the casual viewer than the trivia nut. I'm sure that there's it could get more esoteric if it wanted to, and it doesn't, to make it more accessible to the public. So I'm guessing Sports Jeopardy is that way. I'm not a sports guy myself, so I only got maybe 2, 3, 4 questions on the show when watching it. So I'll take your word that it's not as accessible. But
I thought the clues were really hard too, though. So, but I know at least one Jeopardy champion in the Sports Jeopardy pool, so he should know about wagering. And then Sandy Baker's husband is in the Sports Jeopardy pool too, so hopefully he knows about wagering too.
Has there ever been a husband and a wife champion?
Oh.
on Sports Jeopardy, regular Jeopardy,
Regular.
I think I saw a post on Jeopardy talking about that once. I can't remember who they were though.
Paulson's his wife, didn't she win? Or
Whose wife?
Dan and Andrea Paulson,
Oh, yeah.
right?
That's one.
I think those two won. I think.
Yeah, they both won.
Yeah. So yeah, Dan Paulson and his wife have both won.
Yeah.
No, Robin Carroll's husband played win.
Oh yeah, and no, actually no, that's brother.
I think we all feel as though we should know this answer, or at least half of the panel feels as though it should know this answer. But
Now, are they going to tape any more Sports Jeopardies after some of them have been seen on the internet? Like, are people going to know what the cutoff is for getting into the tournament?
I'm not entirely sure about that. I think Mike would actually probably have been the best person to answer that question for us as to the taping schedule. But
Yeah.
I know that through 10 episodes, he is still in third place. So his score is still in third. So he is still in with a very faint hope, with I think 40 weeks to go before they find their 3 finalists.
It's the top 3 the top 3 that go.
Yes, correct. The top 3 go through to the 2-day finals. Okay, so let's see. I think we're safe to go on to talk about regular Jeopardy in this past week, and we are fortunate to have a pair of champions join us to discuss this past week. A couple things first of all, I think is important. We had Ryan Alley speak of the rumors 3 or 4 weeks ago on our podcast here regarding the change in terms of ties. At what point were you guys told that there was a change to that rule?
We were told the Monday that we filmed, or maybe it was Tuesday, David, I don't remember, but when we filmed the episode that aired on the 24th, we were told. So I think that was the first game where the new tiebreaker rule was in effect. It was the one that aired the 24th.
Yeah, it was that Monday morning with Maggie's great speech that she gives before everybody goes out. We were told that the tiebreaker was in effect that would keep there from being ties from here on out.
Okay.
Interesting.
So, I mean, obviously you would know that yourself because you were there the previous Friday, and obviously Maggie didn't say anything in her speech at that point I presume.
No, I actually shot in August, and then I came back in October.
Okay.
So the show that aired on the 7th, I shot in August. So there was quite a space in between there. So I think the first time I heard about the new tiebreaker rule was when Maggie discussed it when we filmed the episode that aired this Monday.
Okay.
And she phrased it as the fact that this is the new rule as of today.
Yes.
I don't recall it being as of today, but it was at least letting us know that it was going on. But Jennifer would be the one to know from having heard the speech before. So.
Yes, because there were ties the previous time that I was on and aired. There were ties, and so I guess they came up with the new rule to stop the co-champion phenomenon.
I don't think we'll ever know why.
Yeah.
But
I have no idea. Maybe they had to pay out too much.
I don't think it's a monetary issue. I think it was a logistical issue.
I know. I'm just joking. I'm sure they have the money to cover it.
To be honest, I really think it's a combination of logistical and standards and practices.
Right.
And that's why they chose to make the change. And so I will vehemently debate anyone who tries to say that it's because Sony is too cheap, because I would say they're not.
Oh no.
I would do the same. I got your back, Andy.
Yeah. Then they would have refused us. They would have refused us our money, and yeah. So.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the big totals. So.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of, I guess we can go on and talk about a couple of things as well. I know. Okay, going back to your first game, Jennifer. I know it came up in our pre-show a little bit that you're big into sports. So how did it feel having sports team logos come up as your Final Jeopardy category?
That's one of those things where you just feel like that was a gift from above. Because I am a sports nut. As soon as my friends saw sports logos, they were like, "We knew you had it the minute we saw the category." So that felt great. And I felt like I needed a big wager. I was in second place, so I needed a big wager. So it was an awesome feeling.
Are you happy that they gave you fleur-de-lis for the New Orleans Saints, considering, I believe, looking at the question, it's like this NFL team's logo? Well, I mean, it makes sense that depending on how you read the question, whether they're looking for the logo or the team, but...
Big debate on J-board on that one, I remember.
Yeah, I think that what occurred to me at the time was when you are getting ready to play Final Jeopardy, the contestant coordinators come around and they tell you to write down either what is or who is based on the category. Because they don't want you to forget to form in the phrase of a question, and then you would lose just for that only reason. So what is the New Orleans Saints doesn't sound right to me. I would have said, who is the Saints? What is the fleur-de-lis? I believe that was my logic at the time, because, I mean, obviously I knew both. But I was honestly a little surprised about the hoopla over the whole thing. One guy even uploaded a video of his mother having a fit on Twitter because of the question, or that I was given the answer correctly. So they may have even said they would accept both in the first place. I don't remember that. I know Alex said it when they revealed the questions.
Okay.
So.
How long, was there much of a tape stoppage there, or had they already decided before they got to you whether to accept it?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think there was just the normal time, but I don't remember.
Okay.
I think there was so much going on. The one thing that surprised me the most about Jeopardy is whenever there's a break, people rush out and they're touching you. They're, moving the mic or testing the buzzer or something like that. So there's a lot going on in between the breaks. I don't know if the rest of you felt that way too.
Yeah, they keep on touching up my bald head with more makeup. So.
Get out the turtle wax.
Wait,
Yeah, the guys were loving all that makeup, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess not much of a tape stoppage there. So I guess they'd probably, when they saw you write fleur-de-lis down, they'd probably already begun their deliberations and had reached a decision by the time Alex got to you.
Right, and it's really hard to tell what the judges are even doing. I mean, from where we're standing, I couldn't even see. I wouldn't have known if those judges were male or female or tall or short, or I mean, I couldn't even really see them. So
dark down there.
yeah, it's very dark, and I'm sure that's on purpose. So
Yeah.
if they were deliberating, I wouldn't have seen it.
I think I saw the debate on JBoard, and when you really have to parse through the language, I don't think that's what the judges or standards and practices want. You know, they didn't say the logo of this NFL team; they said this NFL team's logo. And I guess once they saw her answer, again, they're not going to set the expectation if they realize that it's confusing phrasing. And as somebody who writes and edits for a living, I was okay with them going in the direction for Jennifer, not just because I like her. So.
Oh yeah, looking at the question myself, I completely, I'm on the judge's side with this one. That it's for sure that they should have, their decision was correct.
Well, thank you. And here's the funny part of the whole thing is that the Saints fans on Facebook took it as an omen that they're going to win the Super Bowl. So I have received many interesting messages from Saints fans, and I've received several fleur-de-lis items in the mail from my friends who are Saints fans, because they knew I knew both answers, I guess. So I have a lot more fleur-de-lis stuff now.
Any help that they can get, sure.
You just need a photo of yourself having won the show saying, "Who dat is Jeopardy champion."
I love it.
Okay. Now, I guess while we're on the subject of tape stopping, and David, you've probably got a good idea as to what happened here. Aggie's response on the anchor question in Potpourri. Did tape stop there?
Yeah, they did have a tape stoppage and come back and went through the whole hoist thing. I don't remember how long it was, but I do remember there being a stoppage.
Okay. It felt that way because her facial expression changed from before and after to it looked like there was definitely some sort of a cut there because it seemed like she had a facial expression of, "What do you mean that's wrong?" And then in the next shot she's grinning. So so it definitely looked like there was a tape stoppage there. Now I'm just curious, David, first up.
Yep.
Was your strategy going in kind of deliberately betting small on daily doubles a bit?
I think it depends on the question, and it also depended on my studying history. I did a lot of J Archive, and I knew my history of daily double and Final Jeopardy questions. I recall getting two. I mean, if we want to do, are you talking daily double or Final Jeopardy?
Daily double first up.
Okay. Well, I think the first one was on the Friday game, and it was the question in the 20th century history categories in the 2000 slot. Yeah. I wasn't going to bet big because you didn't know where it was going to go, and I wanted to play it safe. I know a lot of people will play the go big or go home thing. You have to consider where the question is and where you are in the game and what your expertise is. So that was why I bet $1,000 in the $2,000 slot, and I was right. I got it wrong.
Yeah. That's nothing wrong with going small if you're not sure in that, especially in that at the bottom level.
Yep.
Now,
go ahead. I'm sorry. So the infamous $5 bet that I will never let myself live down among that 5-minute sequence from heck for me. I just had the Northern Ireland question rightfully overturned. I have no argument with that whatsoever. Looking back on that, somebody described me as a very intense player, and it was true. I'd buzz in and blurt out my answer right there. I was just so keyed in that I didn't give myself more time to think through my answer. And I said Ireland. I should have said Northern Ireland. So I just had that overturned, and I hadn't realized until I rewatched the game the other night that I think it was 1 or 2 triple stumpers that followed that. So nobody had gotten any questions correct in that category yet. I had studied bodies of water, but not UK bodies of water, so I knew it was my weak category. And somehow I was still in control of the board because of the fact that originally been ruled correct for Ireland. So I get this daily double. I'm in my week category. I'm in third place. I don't want to fall any further behind. And so I go minimum of $5. It was so funny watching the reaction on my face after I realized I'd gotten it right. I looked to the side, and I'm just smiling, and I couldn't believe it. Hindsight, of course, you want to bet more, but for that moment, given how badly everybody had been doing the category, how poor my knowledge was of that category, I think was the right bet going in.
Okay. Now, do you think you had... Okay. One thing during the Twitter discussion that I ended up wading into myself on Friday, whether that was a good idea or not, I'm not entirely sure. But one thing I was asked to ask you, David, now with the extra money you lost, for example, had you said Northern Ireland correctly the first time and had more money, do you think you might have been a little bit more confident on your bet?
My daily double bet?
Yes, your daily double bet, yes.
See, I still don't know, because I know my weaknesses, and, UK bodies of water still not there. I mean, I guess if I had realized that some of the ways of phrasing would have made it easier, like North Sea, that was pretty easy. Northern Ireland, I got it wrong, should have been pretty easy, but I still felt some of these questions, for me, were esoteric enough that it was a weak spot. And, I know that there's an advantage, but I felt it was too big a gamble at that point in the game. Now, it might have affected my final Jeopardy bet more so. In fact, it definitely would have affected my final Jeopardy bet. But then again, the way Final Jeopardy went still was contingent on what Anne did with her bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm just, I guess both. I know you've already mentioned that you did a lot of J archiving yourself, or looking at the J archive, David. Now, what kind of studying did you do in terms of wagering? Did you look at perhaps any of Keith's videos?
I had. Jennifer, you go ahead first.
Oh, actually, I had the book How to Get on Jeopardy and Win.
Okay.
Which is the Michael Dupay, I think is his name.
Right.
Yes.
He had a good chapter on wagering, so I will confess that I don't think mathematics is my strongest skill, but my husband is super smart in this, so I said, I need you to read this chapter to me and explain it in English, because I think I get it, but I'm not sure. So he's really good at that. So naturally, I owe him a really nice dinner for helping me with the wagering strategy. I didn't know there were videos on this. I wish I had known that. That would be kind of cool. But there is a lot more information out there about Jeopardy than I knew going in.
Yeah, and I had read Prisoner of Trebekistan, and then I had a coach who I've never met yet. I have a coach up in Toronto who made sure that we emphasized betting strategy, especially Final Jeopardy betting strategy from second position, from third position. And so that's why I made what I felt was a smart bet on the Thursday game in case I'd gotten it wrong, and what I felt was a smart bet on the Friday game in case everybody got it wrong. Of course, hindsight being 20/20, if I'd known that Anne was going to bet what she did, I would have bet more, but it's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
I was very happy to see in Keith's video that he was happy with my wager, though, and that he told me that I shouldn't be kicking myself. So I'm still kicking myself, but I'm happy that he supports me. What'd you say, David?
I said if Keith is happy, you made a good wager.
Yeah.
Yes, I noticed that there were a lot of actually small wagers this week from the lead. Especially, I know Doug on Monday, when he saw British music makers of the 1990s, ducked and ran and decided he wanted no part of that category. Now, what was your reaction when you saw that category yourself, Jennifer? Because, I mean, you were actually, the way it turned out, had you gotten that Spice Girls question right, you would have won.
I know. I was happy with my wager, so that was good. And honestly, when I thought music makers, and I think what threw me off was that they compared this group to the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
So if you compare someone to the Beatles,
yeah.
it should be someone like my dad would know off the top of his head. And when I saw British music makers, first thing in my head was Andrew Lloyd Webber. But obviously, that's not it.
Completely different pain.
Totally different thing, yeah. So I guess I don't think of them as music makers. I think of them more as a singing group. So that may have thrown me off too. You know, the funny part was that the guys that I work with are really good at Photoshop, and they had threatened to Photoshop my head on top of whatever I got wrong.
Uh-oh.
So at least this way I get people with nice figures. You know, I was really afraid I would get like Darwin's apes or something. And so I'm just waiting to see my head on top of all of the Spice Girls.
Spice Girls, yeah.
Now, to that effect, actually, if it's not the Spice Girls, I would say Courtney's answer of the three was probably the best one, because I know Oasis did get compared to the Beatles a lot in the mid-'90s, and
I talked to her about that afterwards. We sat together and we watched a few more shows, and you're right. She said, you know, they got a lot of flack for comparing themselves to the Beatles, so she was absolutely sure that that was it. I said, you know, once I heard that, I thought, no, that was good reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
So if they had mentioned David Beckham, I want to clarify, I would have.
I agree, but that would have made it way too easy.
You're right, absolutely
That's
true.
what most people know about the Spice Girls, that what's her name is married to David Beckham.
That's right.
You know, sitting out in the stands, I thought it was Oasis. I was a 90s music nut. I kind of still am. And I used to manage music stores. And I remember the same thing. Oasis was seen as being this next huge thing. Now, I thought this, but I know that Sam sitting right next to me, you know, afterward, he was like, yeah, I had Spice Girls. That was easy. So.
I'm just looking at Jeopardy right now, and it says that as of this minute, 21% of people answered Oasis. 21% of Jeopardy viewers answered Oasis on that day. So it's not completely out of left field. I expect that number to really go up.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you unsure, that David's referring to Mark Barrett's weekly Final Jeopardy poll. Yeah. And so that is ongoing over at JBoard if you're interested in chiming in on how well you did on last week's Final Jeopardies. Now let's see. I think I have a couple more things I wanted to touch on. Let's see. Now, David, I feel as though there's a story behind the fact that you weren't bar mitzvahed at 12 or 13.
Yeah. Not to get too deep into religion, but I wasn't raised religious whatsoever. You know, my mom was a high holiday Jew, but my parents let me go my own way and pick what I wanted to do. I was fortunate to go on the birthright trip at 26, and I remember very early on one of the tour leaders had told me, he'd asked me if I would be interested in getting bar mitzvahed in a few days, because I told him my history, and I said sure. And it turned out to be this big thing with 20 of us on top of Masada, and it was a very emotional thing. There are a lot of people who are like me that are cognizant, or they recognize their Jewish heritage but aren't overly religious. And some of them have been raised in a religious background, but other ones like me, we see the ethnicity without having the religion. And so for somebody rekindling the religious side of himself, being in Israel, having my bar mitzvah, was an opportunity I couldn't turn down. I'd been hoping to do it at the synagogue I'd started going to in New England, but again, being in Israel, to mark you're truly becoming a man or a Jewish man, that's a good thing.
That's a very cool story. I love that.
Now, did either of you have any stories you wished Alex had touched on over your appearances?
I had one that I'm kind of glad he didn't get to, because I think it made me sound a little bit squirrely, but I had a dog who used to bark incessantly if she heard the word Titanic. And that was the only thing that made her bark like that, except if someone was at the door. And so once I was reading a book about Titanic after that, and it said that 2 dogs were rescued from the Titanic, because people traveled with their dogs in those days, such long trips. And the 2 dogs rescued were a bulldog and a Pekingese, and my old dog was a Pekingese. So my friends were convinced that she was like a reincarnated from that dog that survived the Titanic. But yeah, I'm kind of glad that's not out there.
It is now.
It is now.
It is now, but
now.
Of the 3 questions that I knew that Alex could have asked me, I'm glad the ones that he went to. It's funny, I didn't know where he was hoping to go on the first day, on Thursday, but he comes up to my podium and I look at him and I go, you want to hear my Mike Tyson impression. He looks down, he looks back up and goes, you do a Mike Tyson impression too. And so I was glad, and I'm glad that the impression came off well. I didn't hear any laughter from the crowd while I was on stage, so I was glad watching on Thursday that I heard a bit of a laughter from my Tyson. I don't know if Tyson was watching himself. I hope he laughed too for my own
Yeah, that's the important one.
Man, David, I'm so upset with you with your impression of me. I'm gonna kick your butt.
You better watch your ears, David.
Thanks for doing that again, David.
You know, we've heard stories before, and I think even Jennifer's mentioned it about contestants who have gotten things in the mail from people who watch the show. I hope Tyson sends you something, David.
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
That would be so cool. Something that I like that impression of me.
okay. I think I have a couple of questions for Jeff. I believe this is the first time you've been on one of our panels, so.
Yes.
He was in a practice once.
Well, yeah.
He was in a practice one, but
not. Yeah.
not one of our live ones. What have you been up to since the teen tournament where that you won?
Just high school. Yeah. The high school.
Senior year, correct?
Yes. I've discovered it's much more tiring than junior year, which is a bit ironic, but there's rarely a day where I'm not like laying down on the bed and just like, why am I here?
So you're more interested in the...
I mean, not in a bad way. I mean, like, because I'm tired and not in a bad way.
Are you going to be more interested in the Kids Week coming up next week?
Yeah, that'll be fun. I just hope that, people don't remember what happened so many days ago. That would be bad. Yeah. Hopefully people will learn.
Now, Jeff, as somebody who participated in the teen tournament, are you going to be eligible for college or adult tournaments in the future, or is that it?
Yeah, that's it, and unless, of course the rules change, but then they'll tell us about that. Hopefully they change it, but...
And with that in mind, are you still glad that you went ahead with the teen tournament instead of waiting until you're older?
Yeah, I would say I'm very happy with that. I mean, obviously I can't go on before unless they, do some weird tournament like all 15 of the past one tournament. It would be nice. But yeah, I'm happy that I got on because who knows, maybe I wouldn't have got selected at all. Just the random chances that you would get to an audition on the show. So, yeah.
And what have you done with your winnings that you've earned?
So what I've done is I've stored like about 10,000 in my own savings account, and then I've stored like the rest of it in my sister's account so that we could, in order to save for college. And
that makes it easier.
Yeah, and I started there because I know that colleges would sometimes use the Jeopardy money or any kind of like show money as like income, so I want to try to avoid that. Try to sneak the system in a way.
Do you already know where you're gonna go? I'm sorry. Do you know where?
Hopefully, I'll get in early Columbia. I'm still waiting to see the decision about whether they accept me.
What do you want to study?
Astrophysics.
Yeah. Well, good luck. I hope you get to go in that direction.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Cool.
So, a question for Jennifer: how does somebody in Columbus, Ohio, get to be a Los Angeles Dodgers fan?
I thought you'd ask that. I actually lived in Los Angeles for 3 years.
Okay, well that explains a lot.
Yes, and at the time I was single, and I quickly realized that if you go to sporting events, the audience is mostly male. So my love of sports had a mercenary beginning, I have to admit.
Which raises the question, how did you meet your husband?
I met my husband on Match.com.
All that work for nothing?
I know more about sports than he does, which is funny. But he has converted to the true religion of Ohio State Buckeye mania.
Yes.
In order to marry me, he had to step up to that. So, but a Dodgers trivia piece for you. I was at Game 1 of the 1988 World Series when Kurt Gibson hit the dinger out of the park, which was that was incredible. It was just that was a gift.
Did you leave early, or were you still there? Okay, good. Because one of my favorite parts of watching that clip is, in the background you can see the cars leaving Dodger Stadium, and everyone's like, you can see the brake lights go on, everyone in unison. It's like, get back to the park.
Right. Avoiding traffic in Los Angeles is a sport in and of itself. So it's like people love that sport more than they love the baseball, and so if they get home and make good time, they feel better about that, but they didn't feel good that night listening to it on the radio.
So, Jeanie, you have a couple questions for David and Jennifer, actually, so I'll let you ask those.
Okay, well, Jennifer, you mentioned that you taped in August and then in October. I just wondered if you changed your studying or if you studied at all between the times, knowing what it was going to be like on the show. You know what I mean?
Yes, I did. I studied incessantly. I actually was hoping to win the last game, and then I was hoping that they'd say, you know what, we're taking a break, so can you come back in a few weeks? And that way, I felt that really helped me a lot. I think I played a little bit better, and I think I studied harder. I made a ton of flashcards, and that's what did it for me. If I'm writing things in my own handwriting and then reviewing my flashcards, it sinks in. So I think that's my advice to people who want to go on the show is find what works for you that helps you remember things and then go with that. Whatever it is, even if it sounds silly to make a written flashcard in this day and age.
Mm-hmm. How much of what you studied came up on either of your shows?
Enough that it made a difference, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah, and it connected, pieces connected as I was studying too. One of the other things I did was I read children's biographies of famous people. There's a great series called Who Was, Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi, etc. Really interesting, and it's a quick read because it's written for junior high school age kids. So that was a great series, and it taught a lot about history, and it sunk into my flashcards, which was great.
Nice.
Good to know.
Or was somebody helping you with them? You know what I mean?
You mean quizzing me on the flashcards?
Yeah.
Oh, that was my poor husband, Steve, yes.
That's nice.
And my cousin, Marissa.
Okay.
Those are the only two people I could really tell, though, that could help me. So I had to be really quiet when I was studying for the second one.
Yeah.
So therefore, I guess I have to ask you, what was your excuse for having to go back 6 weeks later back out to Los Angeles?
Well, it's so funny. My coworkers were so busy trying to get it out of me for the first several weeks that I think by the time I actually left, they forgot. And they didn't notice I was gone for 2 days. They thought I was just taking a few days off. And now they say, oh, well, we thought something was up. I'm like, sure you did.
Because going back to Ken Jennings, I think his boss was the only one who really knew, and his boss had to come up with more and more creative excuses as to why Ken was taking off Tuesday and Wednesday every second week, and so I think that gets interesting when you bookend a major break, I guess. Jeanie, you said you had a question for David, actually. So
yeah, you said that Kids Week taped the week that you were there taping, also. So I wondered if you got to see those episodes. Kids Week.
No. We only taped our week on Monday, and I had flown out pretty early. I'd actually flown out the Friday beforehand. I had never been to California before, so I actually took the next few days to really enjoy the trip and make sure that it was worth it. I didn't know how I was going to do when I came out, so I really wanted to make the most of the money I was spending to get out there.
Okay. Are you going to watch Kids Week?
Here's the funny thing. I don't actually have a TV. I haven't watched Jeopardy in Lord knows how long. So, yeah.
Huh.
So how did you even want to go on Jeopardy if you weren't really familiar with? Well, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but you know what I mean. You haven't been watching it lately.
I had tried out on the online test beginning of 2010, and it was one of the more humbling experiences that I've ever had, probably since the last time I tried to play basketball or grow hair, and or just grow in general. And I took some time off, and I did the online test last year, and I just skated by, in my opinion. And so I was familiar with the show. I'd grown up watching it with my parents, and like everybody else, I was yelling out answers and thinking, oh, I'm smart enough to get on the show. And I think I just got very fortunate that I got on this time. Very fortunate.
Wow. And you managed to win without seeing much Jeopardy. Good.
I am impressed with that. How long have you been TV-less, David?
I would say a little bit more than a year now. Now, a past relationship, whenever I'd be at her place, we'd cook and have Jeopardy on, so we would do it that way. I did watch, some episodes, but it wasn't an every night thing like it used to be when I was younger. And that actually helped, because then when I was prepping for the show, I was able to go through J-Archive and quiz myself on more modern content, more modern categories, without it already being familiar for everything.
J-Archive, I would definitely say, is very much a great prepping tool. Yes, that's
but there's another element of that, and I'm glad that I did this. And it's one thing to play on J-Archive and be like, okay, I would ring in here, I'd ring in there. But what I started to do was, especially in the weeks beforehand, I'd ask my parents to tape an episode, or for me, and that way I could watch it. Or I'd find an illicitly uploaded episode online, because you don't know with the timing of the show, and it goes by so quickly. You don't realize that when you're yelling out the answers beforehand, but when you have to start getting the timing of, okay, am I going to ring in, am I not? And knowing ahead of time when you're going to make that decision, that really helped out a lot. Still doesn't mean I didn't make some errors in the game, but it got me acclimated to what the show was going to be like.
Yeah, there's absolutely no substitute for actually watching the show. That's always the best thing, which is why I was surprised to hear that you hadn't had a TV in a while.
Well, I'm a writer, and it's a lot easier to get more work done when you aren't watching all the garbage and good TV out there.
Where did you watch your own episodes?
I went to my parents' house, and that was good. I actually, I didn't tell them originally when we were planning that I was going to be up on Friday as well, but I had started watching the entire week. I wanted to see the week's worth of games building up and see what it was like watching on TV compared to watching in the crowd. But, I wanted to, one, it was Thanksgiving for my first episode. I really wanted to share the experience with them as a whole. So even though I knew I was going to lose on Friday, I made the hour drive north from where I am just to spend the time with them. And plus, when you watch yourself lose on TV again, it helps to have mom and dad giving you a hug.
That's nice.
I think I just lost my man card.
What did he say? Oh.
Okay, so I think we're just at the 45-minute mark, and that's usually about when I sign off for a week. Once again, I'd like to thank all of our... well, actually, before I sign off, I should just see... I know Jeanie asked a couple questions. At this point, do we have any panelists with any further questions for any other panelists? I always usually ask this at the end, and I figure I will check on my email to see if anyone's commented on any of the... various spots on YouTube, on the blog.
I've got a question for Jeff and Jen. One, how much trivia night stuff did you do beforehand? And two, how do you intend to use the knowledge that you've crammed into your head to your advantage from here on out?
Well, I feel like I knew a lot of the trivia before, but obviously I needed to do some preparation for it, just to show up some of the weak spots. them using the knowledge, probably just knowledge, just the fact that I know it.
Okay.
Jen, did you go to trivia nights already before your Jeopardy experience?
Jennifer?
Oh,
Jen?
Jen, are you there?
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, sorry. We're asking you, did you
okay.
go to any trivia nights before or after your Jeopardy experience?
Sure, I have. Yeah, I love that kind of thing. Actually, the bad thing, though, is now all my friends expect that I'm going to win, and so if I'm on their team, we're going to beat everybody else because, you know, the word Jeopardy comes up sooner or later as we're playing, you know. So you don't want to be wrong, but I've really kept the knowledge going. I'm a knowledge junkie, so I'm the kind of person who goes to a museum and I take notes on what I see. I've always done that. I like to keep the knowledge and to keep it fresh, so I'm definitely going to keep improving on my study materials, and maybe I'll go on another show at some point, or maybe I'll just keep trying to win trivia night.
nice.
Okay, I see no further questions on any of my stuff, so in that case, I figure we're safe to sign off for another week. I'd like to thank at this point all of our panelists. Once again, Jeff, congratulations again on winning the past teen tournament.
Thanks.
Jeanie and Vernon, though we didn't hear much of Vernon at this point. I was hoping to get a question or two out of him, but that's okay. Thank you, and congratulations once again to Jennifer on your victory. Also, David, I guess you can go watch the football game now. Not sure who I'm cheering for in the Grey Cup because I'm an Argos fan and they did not make it this year.
Hamilton's close.
Hamilton's close, but I don't cheer for Hamilton. It would be like cheering for the Maple Leafs.
Who would do that?
I know, eh? And finally, to David Greisman, once again, I thought you were an excellent panelist. I want to get you back on the panel at some point for sure, because I really liked some of the questions you came up with, so I want to get you back on, and for sure. And I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in, and
To watch the show,
Yeah,
Andy.
you'll have to give me a heads up so that I go watch the show.
Exactly. That good point. Yeah, you don't have a television. We'll have to figure something out with that. But in any case, thank you for tuning in once again. Next week we will be discussing Kids Week with some Kids Week alumni. If you were a Kids Week alumni and want to join us, please let us know at thejeopardyfan.com or by emailing myself or Jeanie. You can also catch us on Twitter or Facebook. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great night.